evening, and thanks for joining us for our Community Pride Special, Altered State. I'm Sherry Swenson.
And I'm Ted Florendo. Throughout the next 30 minutes, we're going to delve into all things weather-related that impacts your life here in southern Nevada. We'll take a look at the increasing temperatures and the effect that's having on the air quality and your breathing.
And to another major event right here in our state, wildfires. They seem to be raging hotter and longer in the west and can change our landscape forever.
And something that's on the forefront of everyone's minds, here in the desert, water. We'll look at the state of the drought in Nevada and what to expect in the coming years.
First up, heat. We continue to break record highs. It's no question we've been experiencing not only hotter daytime temperatures, but overnight lows are staying warm as well.
Yeah, and I talked exclusively with researchers from the Desert Research Institute who say we may be to blame for the warmer years ahead. I'm joined now by Dr. Eric Vandella with the Desert Research Institute. We're here by one of his weather stations here at the DRI. He is a leading expert on urbanization and, of course, heat island. Explain to us what the heat island effect for those of us who don't know.
Very briefly, what we have is that the sun coming on the surface of paved or buildings in the area will collect some of these temperature during the daytime. So when the weather is colder in the nighttime, then all this heat is coming from the surface or the buildings back into the environment. So something that may be like a refreshing evening or nighttime will not be that because of the heat island effect.
Now, what's interesting is when you look at the record highs, we've hit numerous record highs. But we've only reached one record low, and that was way back in 1999. Could that be directly linked to urbanization and the heat island effect?
Well, we think that it is. I mean, as far as the Las Vegas metropolitan area has been growing that much in the last, 15 probably years, we have a less amount of naturally landscape. So what we have is that the reflection of the energy coming from the sun is increasing and increasing as the times go by. So what we have is that this probably is the reason that we are observing these high temps every time, and it's increasing every year.
What's interesting is, so what you're saying is the more concrete, the more homes that are going up, more urbanization, the concrete makes everything hotter and temperatures are getting hotter.
Exactly, that's the idea. And of course, in the new developments, they are including more greenery, which is good because it may save a little bit of these heat island effect. But in the older neighborhoods, you have these, and the increase has been identified in the temperature, has been identified and differentiate from new neighborhoods to all neighborhoods in the city.
You've been doing a lot of study on this urbanization and heat island. What has your studies found?
Well, what we have been studying is that there is a correlation between the increase on the temperature and the effect that the population health may have. So in a study that we published just this year, we found that the frequency of heat waves in the Las Vegas metropolitan has increased, and also that the temperature is increasing every year. So this is not just complaining, it is happening for real. And there is some studies, not by us, but some other authors who propose that this increase is highly related with the heat island effect.
Now, is there anything that we can do as the public to help these temperatures from getting as hot as they've been lately?
Well, it is a complicated matter because living in Las Vegas, as you know, has a challenge about the usage of water. So in order to get more greenery in the place that you live, you need to spend more water, which is a commodity that is, a complicated matter in places like Vegas. So there are some stuff that we can do, and I think that, for example, replacing gardens by local plants or shrubs instead of having the grass could be one, so we can have this heat island effect somehow decreasing because of that. But also saving some water, which is another big problem for our community. So this is one of them, probably replacing some of the materials. So there is a lot of research pending to do in order to deal with that problem, and still a lot of pending work in the case of the development of new technologies on how to deal with that.
Well, Dr. Bandela says studies have shown there have been more heat-related deaths due to warmer temps. Get this, in 2006, there were 4 heat-related fatalities. In 2016, just 10 years later, there were 40.
Well, let's move on to water. You know, this spring, Nevada was officially declared drought-free for the first time in nearly a decade. But after nearly 20 years of less than stellar winter snowpacks in the Rockies, our precious water supply in Lake Mead has been drastically disappearing from sight. But what does that mean? Does that mean we're running out of water? Local water managers say no. Southern Nevada has recorded some of our driest years and consistently hotter temperatures since the turn of the century. 90% of our drinking water comes from Lake Mead, and its ever-expanding bathtub ring as the reservoir shrinks is proof the Colorado River Basin is struggling.
We are on a limited amount of water supply that we have for all of our community. We are living well within that water supply.
That confident claim hasn't come without strong water management and a strategic long-range plan, says Bronson Mack with the Southern Nevada Water Authority.
So every year that plan gives us a 50-year rolling outlook of our planning horizon, where our community may be and what the water resources are going to need to be in order to meet that demand.
So how do you keep the tap turned on for 2 million residents and 40 million tourists? You dig deep. In 2015, at a cost of $817 million, the so-called third straw was completed to draw water from the deepest, coldest part of the lake. We're drinking from that straw today.
We are always looking at what is the most economically feasible to our customers and what will give us the longest sustained use of that water. And conservation always comes out as number one.
And conserving has literally saved our water supply. Our population has grown by 46% since 2002, but our water use has shrunk 25%. More people are using less water by cutting back.
Reality check! Vegas is enforcing water waste big time.
SNWA's clever publicity campaigns convey the water smart message. Catchy celebrity appeal and crazy shock value seem to soak in with the public better than others. Strict seasonal watering schedules, and even bribing residents and businesses with hefty rebates to trade their water-thirsty grass for cash are working but need to keep growing. It's cost hundreds of millions of dollars, but saved billions of gallons of water, helping us avoid federally mandated restrictions. Max says we've been smart savers and we're staying safely afloat for now.
Water saved is water that we get to store for our future use. Being able to use what we have more efficiently and more wisely allows us to stretch our resources, not just for today, but well into tomorrow for you and everybody else that lives in this valley or may live in this valley in the future.
Well, soon a pumping station will be completed to help pull that water from the third intake should the lake drop too low to flow over Hoover Dam. And just this spring, all 6 states in Mexico who share water from the lower Colorado River Basin signed a drought contingency plan to allow states to bank our water allotments and trade them out when they're needed. We have an 8-year supply in reserves. Ted?
Wildfires can change an area's landscape forever. Just think back to the Carpenter 1 fire. In 2013, it burned nearly 30,000 acres. Wildfires appeared to be growing larger and stronger, creating both conditions that firefighters and scientists have never seen before. Nate Tannenbaum joins us to explain how the two are working together to get better understanding. Nate?
That's exactly right, Ted. They're now turning to drones to try getting a better understanding of just what's going on. We got some drone video from inside a controlled burn earlier this summer in Utah. The Desert Research Institute helping put together a multi-agency team to learn more about fire in the 21st century.
We see the tools that we use to predict their behavior and effects becoming less adequate to the task of predicting them.
It's illegal to fly drones around active wildland fires, but for research purposes in a controlled burn, drones may be the key to a goldmine of information.
We put a variety of innovative payloads over these smoke plumes and fires to better understand the types of emissions during the different stages of combustion.
This is part of a very large project that's multi-agency and multi-organizational. The objective is to collect a suite of data that is going to be used to both evaluate and advance our fire and smoke models.
A couple of scientists from the Environmental Protection Agency gathered data about wildfire smoke.
We're fortunate enough to be able to put our sensor and sampler system on a Desert Research Institute drone, and they're kind enough to fly us into the plume, and we'll be measuring all sorts of emissions so people can understand how much emissions come from all these different types of fires throughout the West.
A wildland fire science professor from the University of Idaho is part of a trailblazing new area of study they call pyroaerobiology, looking into how fires displace tiny living things.
This science flight involved collecting airborne microbial communities over the smoke plumes in order to understand how forest fires facilitate the dispersal of microorganisms through the atmosphere. We started by sampling airborne microbes prior to the fire using our newly configured UAS platform flown by the DRI pilots. Then, the Forest Service lit the prescribed fires while the pilots navigated into the smoke plumes to capture all of the microbes aerosolized by the combustion of wildland vegetation and soils.
Watts says as researchers figure out more ways to use drones, we're likely to see an evolution in the fight against wildfires.
Future iterations of this study will involve more sophisticated payloads and science teams to collect data that will produce a new generation of tools that will be better equipped to cope with the extreme fire behavior that we see in modern wildfires.
Well, those are just a few examples of how our changing weather has affected us over the years.
Yeah, coming up, we'll head to Reno to one of the country's only climate research centers. We'll have a look inside at the work being done.
Welcome back. This next story takes us to the Desert Research Institute in Reno. It's one of 6 regional climate centers across the entire country.
Yeah, Ryan Kennedy shows us how it provides a better outlook on our climate in Nevada and other western states.
How can we predict the winds of tomorrow without taking a look at the winds of the past? It's a question researcher Dan McAvoy asks himself when collecting data at the Western Regional Climate Center.
We don't focus on forecasting future conditions. We're more focused on historical observations.
The agency monitors climate trends in Nevada and 10 other western states using a variety of tools.
So this is a crucial component for the fire management community.
These blue dots represent a network of remotely automated weather stations designed to provide real-time information to crews battling wildfires across the West.
A similar weather station sits more than 9,000 feet high on top of Slide Mountain in Reno. Operated by the Climate Center, it helps to provide wind information to ski resorts that are in the area.
It can give us a heads up from home that when we get up, maybe we'll have issues with wind on our chairlifts. It's a piece of information we pretty much look at on a daily basis to figure out what's going on with the weather at the top of the mountain.
The Climate Center also developed the West-wide Drought Tracker. It shows us what nationwide drought conditions are like now and paints a picture of how things looked many years ago.
2012 through about 2016 was one of the most severe droughts in our observational record going back over 100 years.
That drought brought with it the lowest snowpack on record in the Sierra Nevada mountains, which is the #1 source of water for the western part of the state.
Since then, we've been doing more research on understanding how snowpack and snow levels will change. 2 years ago, 2017, was our wettest winter in the Sierra Nevada on record. And so we're seeing this, it's been called precipitation whiplash. It's projected with climate change that we'll see more frequently these changes from extreme drought to extreme wet and flooding over time.
With these kind of fluctuations, the West is a complex region where precipitation levels and temperatures will vary dramatically across short distances. But despite plenty of challenges, these researchers will continue to observe today's climate patterns to better understand the climate of the future. Ryan Kennedy, 8 News Now.
Change in temperatures across the valley impacts our health.
And what the warmer weather is actually doing to our air quality, that's after the break on Altered State.
Welcome back to our Community Pride special, Altered State. Las Vegas is one of the fastest warming cities in America. The temperature has increased nearly 6 degrees over the past 4 decades.
8 News Now reporter Sally Jaramillo joins us now to explain how the changing climate impacts our health.
The increase in temps in Las Vegas means the valley is hotter and drier. But all that combined with the windy weather we usually have means the air quality is continuing to improve.
The air quality in Vegas is pretty good considering that we live in a valley.
Eleanor Fishbach has lived in the valley since 1962. She vividly remembers the times when she would see a very heavy haze over the valley, often by the mountains.
Over that period of time, so many different types of air quality was obvious. And when there are fires in neighboring states, the aftermath of the fire would hang in the valley. But as soon as we got a breeze, it would blow all out.
And many would have to stay indoors for periods of time. But over the years, air quality has improved.
I love the heat. I breathe well.
Right now, air quality in Clark County in southern Nevada is the best it's ever been and continues to improve.
Kevin McDonald is a spokesman for the Clark County Department of Air Quality. His job is to measure the different pollutants in the air mandated by the Clean Air Act and the Environmental Protection Agency.
It's important that we have clean air because we all share it. Where we are right now, this is one of our 12 monitoring stations. We have them stationed all throughout Clark County.
Some machines track ozone and others dust, smoke, and the soot. McDonald says one assumption we always make is when it's really hot, it's going to create more ozone. And while heat can definitely help alleviate ozone levels, ozone is a chemical reaction.
Well, you can have ozone on a cold day as well as a warm day. So while it does play a factor, wind also plays a bigger factor. If the air is stagnant, that keeps the ozone hanging around.
McDonald says last year we had a total of 35 ground level ozone. This year only 2. And not to mention the seasonal ozone advisory that goes from April 1st to September 30th. Hot, dry, and windy conditions help pick up a lot of dust. That is why we have a lot of dust control measures, especially on construction sites.
It was a lot worse when I first moved here because there wasn't so much, as more they build, the less dust comes.
So limit your driving down to as efficient as possible route. Fill up your gas tank after sunset. That helps to limit ozone.
Sally Jaramillo, 8 News Now.
Well, as we've talked about, weather is ever changing and our temperatures continue to get warmer, Ted.
Yeah, an expert breaks down what we can do as a community about global warming.
As we wrap up our Community Pride Special, we've seen many examples of how weather in Nevada has changed over the years.
Yeah, Dr. Kamud Achara has been studying Nevada's climate for over 20 of those years. He's now the new president at the Desert Research Institute. Here's his thoughts on climate change.
Climate change is not a hoax. It's real. That's one thing. The second thing is we got to figure out a way to conserve water. You can't stop growing. Growing is a phenomenon that has to happen. It's a supply-demand case. But you have to learn to live with less water, conserve water, make sure that you have plants that require less water. You have less water-intensive activities. I don't know whether we should even have swimming pools in Las Vegas. At some point, it's going to be very costly. So I think we all need to contribute from all sides to deal with it. To learn to live with less water and preserve water, conserve water, because we've got to preserve our planet here. If there's no water, just imagine there's only a finite amount of water in this planet, but the population keeps increasing. So we can't put everything on climate change only. We also have a lot of people on this planet and that population keeps growing. So we just have to live with it and learn to live with it with less water.
There are people out there that have the facts, and they claim they have the facts that climate change is not real. Global warming is not real. Your answer to that?
I am a scientist. I've seen data. I've collected data. I've been to glaciers. I've seen pictures of glaciers that used to exist. They no longer exist anymore. So for me, it's black and white. There's not even a doubt about it. There's no gray area. Based on the data that I've seen, water resources. Talk about the timing of snowfall or rainfall or precipitation. Now we're seeing much earlier rain, the snow melt happening. All of these things, these are not hoax. These are real. There are data out there to prove all of this.
Well, climate change and global warming, very controversial topics. However you feel about it, all of us here in our state need to adapt to our changing weather.
That's right. Thanks for joining us over this past 30 minutes for a Community Pride Special Altered State.
And we hope you enjoyed learning about the different changes in our weather patterns in our state. Have a great evening.